Welcome everyone to the 124th Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where we will be looking into Doris Day and Rock Hudson. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new returning, I take notes on a Synastry chart looking at the personal planet, signs, aspects, and if birth times are available, house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us weekly, and let's get right into this one. Starting off with the sun, we have Doris's sun in Aries and Rock's sun in Scorpio. These are both ruled by planet Mars in traditional astrology. They likely have lots of fights, and Rock holds grudges against Doris. Good start. They love each other intensely. I'm not sure what their relationship was. I'm going into this one pretty blind as to their relation to each other, so I'm not sure if they were married together at some point or like rumored to be in a relationship of some kind back in the day, but that is there. They are both willful and passionate, and Rock has a desire for emotional connection which Doris doesn't share. That's sad, and I guess why he would hold an emotional grudge, just any grudge against Doris if, he's desiring someone that she is, not really reciprocating. Doris's sun overlaid in Rock's 7th house. It's love-hate, which we're already seeing a bit, and they feel united together. They are deeply moved by each other, and they get in each other's heads. They sense that they are complementary, and they both subconsciously try to prove they are separate from the relationship. I mean, from legacy-wise, I feel like they are pretty successful. Like, from what I know about these two, I'm pretty sure Doris Day was one of those more, like, wholesome characters in old Hollywood, like, very well presenting and, the nice goody two-shoes. Rock Hudson, I'm pretty sure he was one of those, like, heartthrobs. I know later on in life he did, like, come out as gay and everything, so that was his sort of, like, difference in things among the heartthrobs and everything, so I'm not sure. It seems like legacy-wise, they did prove themselves to be quite separate. Not sure how that would have, translated to when they were actually alive in their peak. They feel the other is a big presence in their life, and they need to find balance to make the relationship work. Yeah, I feel more so for Rock, because if he's desiring an emotional connection, that could be potentially how he just goes about friendships and everything, or relationships. And, someone doesn't share that, it probably is best to get some balance in that so you don't necessarily, come to hold grudges and all of that. They both may be driven to express themselves in extreme ways, and possibility of their personalities being lost in their relationship. I wonder, maybe, because this, to me, you could also read this as, because they were both actors, maybe they're, they're working on some, like, film together and all of that. Maybe the personalities were literally lost in the relationship that they had. Rock's sun overlaid in Doris's 3rd house. It's a comfortable atmosphere, and Rock thinks Doris is brilliant. They enjoy talking about their days, and Rock thinks Doris is predictable. Again, kind of following that with the reputation she has, I imagine. Doris feels smarter around Rock, and Rock sees Doris as someone with good common sense. So I guess seeing her, you could see this as she's just less emotional, more practical, common sense, you could say. I imagine in that time especially, like, emotions very, weren't associated with logic and all of that. Doris's sun, Trine Rock's moon. There is honest communication, and Doris relies on Rock's support. Rock relies on Doris's wisdom, we're kind of seeing again, and it's a naturally cooperative relationship. They both feel they can rely on each other, and Rock tends to be dependent on Doris. Yeah. The couple of things we've seen already, it seems to be that way. Doris's sun, Trine Rock's Mercury. They have a great friendship, and there is good communication. Doris accepts Rock, which you could see this as a way, like, when they, he came out and everything, potentially she was one of the supportive people in his life then. They both just get each other, and they do business together well, which I imagine would be more so on the acting, on the film project and all of that. Doris supports Rock's beliefs, and they can talk through issues together. Doris gets what makes Rock tick, and Doris admires Rock's intelligence. They understand each other on a basic level, and they speak to each other with understanding. I assume that basic level would just be like acting and their careers and all of that, and their lifestyle, I imagine. Doris allows Rock to express himself. This is a really nice, really positive U-turn, I feel like. Not to say that Doris came off as someone like, horrible and everything. But, you know, it was a bit like she seems to be a bit more like, you know, less emotional, very practical and all of that, you know, potentially thinks of herself a bit more. But it's nice to see she seems to be quite accepting of Rock, and I feel like the way I'm interpreting this with real life context, I imagine she would have been like one of those people in a very tumultuous time for like the LGBTQ plus community. She would have been a support for Rock and all of that, which is really nice considering, especially again, the time frame we're dealing with. Doris feels she can think better around Rock, which again, her going back to how she feels smarter around him. Doris's Sun is square Rock's Venus. Their views on the world clash, and it's not as promising as it looks. I imagine like when they were maybe cast in a particular movie, maybe the movie didn't make as much money or something like that. Love can easily turn into hate, and they have arguments over money. This again could be maybe an acting thing. I'm not sure how successful they were. They could have been producers even or something like that, because that is mostly the money people when it comes to like a film project. Doris is selfishly ambitious. I wouldn't be surprised. There is a bit of like selfishness to Doris in this relationship. Rock strives to keep the relationship balanced. Again, I feel like the way I'm interpreting this, I feel like for his sake, he would be, you know, trying to keep the relationship balanced. He potentially recognizes Doris may not be an emotional support. She could be a support in other ways, but, you know, potentially to vent or other emotional matters, Doris is not really the one for that, which he would distance himself, make a balance, you know. They both hope to find what they are looking for in the other. Doris's Sun squared Rock's Jupiter. They have different values and they may overindulge each other. Excess is from good intention and there's a strong desire to make each other happy. Rock has the ability to cheer up Doris, and they both may expect too much from their relationship. We're seeing again, that expectations are definitely a part of, like, it seems like their meeting and what their relationship will look like. They both encourage the other to self-indulge and be impractical. I feel like this will be more coming from Roxanne, because it seems like Doris is very practical. Doris's Sun square Rock's Pluto. It's love-hate. We're seeing, again, I'm feeling like, because we, you know, it seems like there is, like, an expectation with, like, meeting and all of that. And I assume it would be more in like an actor sense, like maybe they had high expectations for the project or them working together and it didn't really go well. I wonder if as colleagues they are pretty horrible, but as friends they are pretty good. That's why there is this maybe love-hate dynamic. There's a strong magnetic connection and it is transformative. Both need to learn not to focus on their ego, and it is hard to remain just friends after. So potentially, I don't know, maybe they're associated together in some financial sense in Hollywood. They both want to be dominant and they want to learn everything about the other. There are power struggles and there's a possibility to encourage the other's negative qualities. I'm just feeling like this is some kind of, I don't know, like some producer dynamic, it seems to me. Like there's some money. It seems like they wanted to invest or work together because they were, you know, quite notable stars in their time. I'm sure, like, you know, working together, it would have been, you know, for them, it seemed like a smart choice, but whatever went wrong. And I wouldn't be surprised because producers generally, not to say they're evil people, but, you know, they're very focused on the money rather than the craft of things. So potentially, maybe they both share this negative quality of maybe prioritizing money and finances rather than the craft, or something like that. Hopefully I made sense. There's a possibility of an unhealthy obsession with the other, and they both experience emotions they never felt before in a relationship. Rock's Sun trine Doris's Mercury, so this is a repeated aspect, just inverted. So everything from before is further emphasized, but also Rock accepts Doris and Rock accepts Doris's beliefs. Rock gets what makes Doris tick, which I assume this would be a matter of like her sort of, you know, her, I was going to say her ego, her practicality. It seems like potentially maybe a more type A personality. Rock admires Doris's intelligence and Rock allows Doris to express herself, which I imagine is why she would feel like, because we did see how she feels like she can think better around Rock, but he, you know, has that space for her to, you know, express herself fully and all of that, no restrictions. Rock feels he can think better around Doris.
Now for the intermission. This video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized synastry readings on my Etsy store, both basic and detailed. The basic one is very simple to understand. It's not overwhelming at all. It's pretty good for those that are beginners to astrology, just getting the head around astrology, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed one is just like what I do on my channel, just a lot of insight and interpretation on your chart. So if you are interested in that and everything else astrology and tarot related, readings and gifts, then definitely check out my Etsy store. Links are below. I'm always releasing new things, so definitely check it out if you're interested. You can even just favorite the store just to show your support for free. Thanks for listening, and let's get back to the reading.
So now it's time for moon. We have Doris's moon in Gemini and Rock's moon in Sagittarius. These are both mutable signs. These are also sister polarity signs as well. They love traveling together and they prioritize their freedom. They share similar emotional needs. I'm interested to see where this will go. Considering, Rock in the beginning, maybe in some other ways it is similar, but so far it seems like they have a bit of contrast in that area. It's a satisfying friendship and an intellectual relationship. They share a love for books and movies, and Rock is more optimistic than Doris. Yeah, it seems like on this project, maybe like Doris, considering she seems to be a bit more type A, maybe she was viewing the film, project a bit more analytically, and Rock was maybe focused a bit more on the craft. I'm really trying to figure out what their relationship was. I don't believe they were married. I feel like I would have heard that, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to, interpret this with my blind knowledge. Doris's moon overlaid in Rock's 9th house. Doris idolizes Rock, and Doris feels Rock is out of her league, which you could see this maybe like at the time, he had a bit more status. I wonder, we haven't really seen anything otherwise. I wonder if this is kind of a dynamic where maybe Rock was, more famous, had a longer amount of fame compared to Doris when she, came into the industry. Like, I'm kind of thinking of the Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe dynamic, where she idolized him as she was growing up and became, was inspired to do acting because of him. I wonder if that's a similar situation of Doris maybe admiring Rock and, she came into the industry, idolized him and, saw him as like this crazy successful guy. Because obviously when you look up to someone, naturally you always feel they're out of your league. Doris brings out the best in Rock, and there's a possibility for long distance. Rock may become emotionally attached to Doris, and Rock may become dependent on Doris. Oh, that's sad. I feel kind of sad for him, like emotionally so, I should say. It seems like in other ways, Doris, has some positives for Rock, but emotionally it doesn't seem great. They share similar attitudes on politics and religion, and there's mutual respect, admiration, and affection. Rock's moon overlaid in Doris's 3rd house. It's cooperative and friendly, and Rock admires Doris's lifestyle. Rock is supportive of Doris's priorities. If we're going with, this producer-actor dynamic we're seeing, because I did kind of make a point of, like, potentially there is something maybe Doris is more focused on, like, the practical side, like finances, Rock more so on the craft. So it seems like he seems very chill in a way. Like, he, just wants emotions and all of that, and then Doris is this type A type person. Maybe he's just going with the flow. They communicate well, and Doris enjoys Rock's company. Doris thinks of Rock often. It's relaxed and productive, and they don't irritate each other. So maybe they are actors. I really need to look into what these two are. Like, if they've done anything together, if these were married. I don't feel like they were married and had like a set up Hollywood marriage. Unless we see something later on, so far, I don't feel like this is that kind of relationship. Doris's moon at Trine Rock's Mars. They're instinctively drawn to each other, and there's a mutual attraction that is there. As soon as I said this is not any sort of relationship, marriage whatsoever, that comes up. I mean, hopefully we'll see a bit more. It's a lively relationship, and Doris nurtures and feeds Rock's ego, which I feel like he kind of does need. Like, he seems to feel neglected in a way in this relationship with Doris. Rock teaches Doris to be brave and confident, and they both learn about the instincts and needs here. Expressing feelings is spontaneous here, and arguing is not uncommon. Doris's moon is square Rock's Uranus. Doris is possessive of Rock, and the relationship can begin suddenly. Doris feels emotionally insecure and around Rock. That is interesting, considering she doesn't seem to be interested in like an emotional friendship relationship with Rock. He seems to be quite neglected in that way. It's interesting that she's possessive of Rock. This is one of those readings. I think this is the only reading. I don't want to say the only reading. I'm sure I've said it before. But this is a reading I really wish I would have, had some knowledge before going into this. Because there are some readings you go into blind and it is just, it doesn't make sense to you unless you know something. Does that make sense? Doris's moon is sextile Rock's Neptune. Art is a shared interest, not surprisingly so, and they sense each other's feelings. I mean, in some ways they do. I feel like emotionally, not so much. They understand each other. It's a mystical meeting. I mean, we did say the relationship can begin suddenly. I wonder maybe if like Doris was working on some project or something and some actor fell out and Rock was kind of brought on last minute. So that way, that kind of, not mystical, more so like in a fate way. And the relationship can begin suddenly. In that way it does, and in a way the expectations would be there, because especially if Rock is like a big person, you could see it as Rock was brought on last moment to kind of save the project in a way. The project had a lot of potential and all of that. Oh, we'll just put a Rock in. He's successful anyways. Like, this will be fine. And then those expectations potentially were failed. And that is why Rock may have been, very like with going with the flow and everything, because he's brought on last minute. What can he, he can't really be messing around Doris's priorities and what she is doing, There's a spiritual connection. Rock's moon is square Doris's Uranus. This is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized, but also Rock is possessive of Doris, and Rock feels emotionally insecure around Doris, which I can't say I'm really surprised. Like, with what we have seen, this is in line with Rock, isn't it? Rock's moon at Trine Doris's Neptune. Rock picks up on Doris's needs. Yeah, he seems to be a bit more intuitive and sensitive here. They inspire the other, and art is a shared interest. We're seeing again. They sense each other's feelings, and they share a sensitive and mystical worldview, which we have seen already a few times. They do generally seem to share, like, views and stuff like that, which is nice. They have a mystical meeting, we're seeing again, and they both uncover the other's blind spots. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Doris's Mercury in Pisces and Rock's Mercury in Sagittarius. These are both mutable signs. These are also ruled by Jupiter in traditional astrology. Doris finds Rocky egotistic. Maybe like he genuinely did have a bit more sort of experience on Doris, and there really was that dynamic where Doris really admired Rocky as a sort of like actor and all of that when she was younger, and then going into, actually meeting him, that was a bit of like a, shock in a way for her maybe. Rocky can be too brash for Doris, and Doris can be a buzzkill for Rocky. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. Like, throughout this reading, she seems to be a bit more on the type A side of things, They learn from each other, and Rocky gets impatient with Doris. Doris's Mercury overlaid in Rocky's 6th house. Doris's mind is stable around Rocky, and Doris communicates with Rocky practically. Rock thinks that Doris is reliable, which, yeah, I feel like, being around Doris here, she seems to be reliable in a more practical sense. I feel like someone very good to work with. Emotionally, not so much. Rock sees Doris as a stable companion. This is a little wrench thrown in, because for Rock, and I assume like how he would have felt like at the time, especially being like an actor in Hollywood and like being in the public space, I wouldn't be shocked if to maybe like hide his sexuality and all of that and his like true identity. Potentially he was in a way shopping around for potential like beards essentially. So I wonder if maybe he saw Doris in that way. Rock's Mercury overlaid in Doris's 4th house. Doris's emotions are sensitive to Rock's words. Oh, she has emotions. Doris can predict what Rock will say, and Doris is comfortable with Rock. So I'm glad that there is, Doris seems to have like a sprinkle of like, I don't want to say humanity. It makes her sound like a robot. I'm sure she's a lovely person. It just seems like throughout this whole reading, we've seen she's very type A and very like stiff in a way. And so it's nice to see that she has a bit of like, softness to her. They both fit well in each other's lives. This is interesting. Doris's Mercury sextile Rock's Jupiter. Rock appreciates Doris's thoughts and ideas, and there's open communication, which we did see he's quite open to her priorities and all of that, so it seems like that's related. There's a strong friendship, and business together is beneficial. Rock often gives Doris the benefit of the doubt, which we're kind of seeing again. He seems to be a bit more with the flow of things. They enjoy traveling together, and there's an optimistic meeting. The meeting is very interesting to me. I'm very curious how they met, because the theory I've come up with, who knows how accurate that is, because I'm just doing it based off like what we're seeing here. Not so much compared to real life. They intellectually stimulate each other, and they love to laugh together. Doris's Mercury conjunct Rock's Uranus. Rock challenges Doris's way of thinking, and they both enjoy experimenting. They come up with original ideas together, and they discover new ways of seeing the world together. I feel like this might be potentially a bit more on Doris, which with Rock as well, we did see that he admires her lifestyle, so that is there. But also it seems like Doris is quite accepting of Rock, so who knows if like maybe Rock helped her like accept, gay people essentially and all of that, and that side of like life, because, in the 50s, 60s, that would have been kind of like a very hidden side of life and all of that. They are impulsive together, and they grow intellectually together. Doris truly understands Rock's originality, so I assume this is again referring to like, Rock potentially coming out to Doris with that and all of that. They share an interest in unusual topics, and they casually talk about taboos, which again, I feel like I'm a bit of a record player. But like obviously during that time, anything LGBTQ plus would have been very taboo and like very underworld and hidden. So I assume like it would have been more of like a casual conversation of these two, which is nice to see. They are creative together, and they find uncommon solutions to problems. There's only 2 notes that have made me think maybe they were married or something, or considering to get married, because finding uncommon solutions to problems, it is a bit of like, I guess for Rock would have been a problem, not to like wanting to out himself or like the public to suspect anything in a time where like that would have been detrimental to his career. So we did see he sees Doris as a potential stable companion. So I wonder if maybe that was a discussion they had potentially. I'm very curious on that. Rock's Mercury conjunct Doris's Mars. Discussions and intellectual debates are prioritized. Rock is vocal about his fantasies with Doris, which I would interpret this as potentially giving new ideas to Doris. We did see that he challenges her way of thinking, so I assume like on set, like a sort of like vision fantasy he has for the movie, I assume that's what this will be relating to. Rock sees Doris as irritable, and Doris feels frustrated with Rock. Rock's Mercury sextile Doris's Jupiter, so this is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized. But also Doris appreciates Rock's thoughts and ideas, and Doris often gives Rock the benefit of the doubt. I'm glad we're seeing twinkles of like, again, I know, for lack of better words, humanity in Doris, some softness in her. Rock's Mercury square Doris's Uranus. They challenge the way the other looks at things. I assume this is a bit more on sort of like a work set pace, considering that it seems like Doris seems to be quite accepting of Rock, but in a sort of work sense, she seems to be quite type A and all of that, and we did see it seems like they do challenge each other's like just way of thinking. They have intellectual conversations, and Doris finds Rock too traditional. That's interesting. I wonder if this is more maybe he's like a traditional actor. It seems like he has a bit more sort of like game. Doris finds Rock too traditional. I mean, I feel like this is obviously in a work sense, if it seems like Doris is, knows about Rock and all of that. So I wonder, it seems to be an element of Rock having a bit more experience than Doris. I don't know why. I did check. Rock is technically younger than Doris, if my dates of birth are correct, and years of birth are correct. So I wonder if maybe he just maybe started out when he was younger, and that's how he got more experience than Doris. And that's why maybe he has older fashioned views when it comes to acting. Rock finds it difficult to depend on Doris. Interesting. I assume this is more in like a, work sense. Rock's Mercury, Trine Doris's Neptune. Doris inspires Rock's imagination. So again, like vocal about the sort of like fantasies he has, which you could see that in the acting sense, but there is a little twinkle of Rock potentially seeing Doris as like, for lack of better words, like a beard for him during that time, sort of like to help his career in that way. So I wonder if it's related to that sort of fantasy imagination, or if this is literally just on set. Rock has a bit of like a different vision, maybe with like the story and all of that, and or how things look. They get each other and they share an appreciation for the arts, and they're forgiving with each other, which I think we did see that they both give the other the benefit of the doubt, which is there. So now it's time for Venus. We have Doris's Venus in Aries and Rock's Venus in Capricorn. These are both cardinal signs. Doris is attracted to Rock's dominance. It seems like he has a bit more skin in the game than Doris. In some way he does. Rock may feel like Doris's parent, and Doris desires to rile up Rock. It's a bit odd considering what we've seen about her potential personality. It is long term, and Rock finds Doris stimulating. Doris's Venus overlaid in Rock's 7th house. Doris sees Rock as the perfect partner, so maybe that was something thrown around, and like that is the fantasy that Rock was vocal about with Doris. They are complementary, and Rock feels comfortable around Doris. They both want to please each other, and longevity relies on Rock's attraction to Doris. I wonder, I assume this wouldn't be like, this could be an attraction in different ways. Attractive in terms of like, maybe Doris's like, talent and skill and all of that rather than other things. So I wonder if it is more of like a work sort of attraction, like, attracted to a sort of like work, dynamic they have and all of that, or if it is literally maybe her personality that he's attracted to, and potentially, because I don't know if these were married. If they weren't married, this idea could have been potentially thrown around, and maybe Rock's, attraction to the idea of being married to Doris maybe faded away, and that is where the longevity relies on. I hope that all makes sense. Rock's Venus overlaid in Doris's 4th house. Rock feels the need to protect himself from Doris. I mean, I feel like this is just emotionally so, because that's not great on Doris's end. Rock has a strong attraction to Doris. We're seeing again. So I wonder, like, what sort of attraction that would have been. I wonder if we'll see a bit more. Doris senses Rock's hesitancy, and there is strong magnetism, and uncertainty and tension characterizes their relationship. There are certainly tense elements to this relationship for sure. Doris's Venus opposite Rock's Mars. Doris may become manipulative to try get Rock to prove his feelings. I mean, we did see that Doris senses Rock's hesitancy. I wonder if maybe there was an element of like, maybe they were thinking of like a public sort of marriage, because that was very common in old Hollywood, like random setups for like publicity purposes, especially when there was a movie or something like that. So I wonder if that was on the cards, and maybe Doris genuinely was into Rock, but that wasn't reciprocated. I'm very confused with these two. There's been a few wrenches thrown in here. The desire for each other will always be there, and Doris feels she gives more than she gets. I don't blame Doris for thinking that way of Rock. She feels like she's probably doing everything, and Rock is just chilling, like, oh, do whatever you want, Doris sees Rock as harsh, which we did see before. She sees him as a bit more brash, so that's them again. Rock sees Doris as lacking substance, and Rock may come on to Doris too strong. These last few aspects and overlays we've seen have really thrown me off with like Rock and like what his, I guess, intentions are for Doris. Doris's Venus, Trine Rock's Neptune. They are tolerant of each other, which again, the whole forgiveness thing, they overlook each other's, or they give the other the benefit of the doubt and all of that. Rock appreciates Doris and Doris is willing to overlook Rock's faults. So I assume this would be like maybe he's going with the flow thing and not being as type A, you know, as her, that's the sort of thing she's happy to overlook and give him the benefit of the doubt of, you know, even though she doesn't seem too obsessed with it. They're attracted to each other. This, again, is for all of these weird attraction things are throwing me off. They have similar taste in music and art, and it's loving and harmonious. We did see that they both fit in each other's lives well, which is why I assumed the harmonious thing would come in. Expectations are a part of the meeting. We're seeing again, and Doris may expect too much of Rock. I feel like there was some dynamic where Rock maybe got brought in late or something for some projects. Like, there seems to be some weird thing they're working together. I feel like that they weren't at the, like, starting at the with the project at the same time, if that makes sense. It seems like a project was started, and it seems like more so for Rock, but, you know, maybe Doris as well, where, like, one of them stepped in later than the project commenced, if that makes sense. Doris may expect too much of Rock, not surprisingly so, and Rock may be easily charmed by Doris. Doris's Venus, square Rock's Jupiter. Rock feels more confident and attractive around Doris, and it's a promising relationship. Doris may be irritated with Rock's possessiveness. I think we did see on both ends that, you know, have a bit of a possessive streak. They can find a happy way to share their life. Rock's Venus, sextile Doris's Uranus. Doris likes to keep the relationship exciting, and they share unusual interests, which I think we're seeing again. They're an unconventional couple. I'm very curious as to see if these two were like married or like maybe on the road to getting married. Because you know, in the beginning of the reading, I was like, nah. But like, as we're getting more into it, I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of discussion was on the table. Because something that just came to my mind, you know, with Doris having, because I'm pretty sure she was like one of the more like wholesome images of old Hollywood, one of the goody two-shoes. That would have been a great person for Rock to, I guess, have a sort of like fake marriage with, you could say, because of her reputation and all that. Like, you know, no one would suspect like his, you know, true sexuality and all of that. Doris really would have been like the perfect like stable companion, which we did see Rock sing Doris in that way. Rock is drawn to Doris's unique qualities, and Doris feels appreciated by Rock. Doris finds Rock charming and attractive. There is like a weird attractive. It seems like, I'm sure, you know, you can still recognize if people are attractive, you know, conventionally attractive particularly. Rock's Venus, opposite Doris's Pluto. There's a fine line between love and hate, which we have been seeing, you know, every now and then here. There's an intense fear of losing each other, and power struggles and manipulation occur, which we did see that Doris, you know, does that manipulation. I think it was to try get Rock to prove his feelings for her. Will not be able to just be friends, which we did see that it's hard to remain just friends after. This is very interesting. Unconventional couple. Staying together is challenging, and Doris's dominance frustrates Rock. Yeah, he seems to have a bit more skin in the game in one way or another. But it does seem like Doris does have this like dominance, like with her type A personality, and like Rock going with the flow. It seems like she's running the show and Rock is just there. Doris is okay with manipulating Rock to keep him. That is being repeated again. So now it's time for Mars. We have Doris's Mars in Sagittarius and Rock's Mars in Scorpio. It's an impulsive relationship, and they are direct with each other. They conflict as they both are dominant, which, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, there's something about Rock. He seems to, I keep saying this, he seems to have more skin in the game, which in that way you would be a bit more dominant with like experience or whatever that is. But also Doris, her personality just seems to be very assertive and like running the show as well. Rock is possessive of Doris, we're seeing again. Doris's Mars overlaid in Rock's third house. Doris is more blunt around Rock, and Rock may intimidate Doris. Again, it seems we did kind of see this, didn't we? Repeated already. There was an element of like Doris like admiring Rock and all of that, so this is not really surprising. Rock is sensitive to Doris's intensity. Not surprisingly so. Again, it seems like around Doris he's a bit more sensitive and all of that, especially when it comes to the emotions and all of that. So I imagine maybe her intensity, maybe she says some things that are a bit harsh, and, Rock is just a bit too sensitive to that, his emotions. Rock's Mars overlaid in Doris's second house. Rock triggers Doris's possessiveness, and Rock is patient with Doris. I mean, it definitely seems to be that way. Like, again, that going with the flow thing, it probably is just very patient, letting her do what she wants, all of that. Doris tends to be more materialistic in this relationship. I did have a little theory back then, potentially like Doris was maybe more focused on the financial, practical side of things, whereas Rock was potentially more focused on, the artistic side of things if this was a project they were working on together. So, that is kind of repeated, confirmed in that way. Rock is sentimental with Doris, and Rock treats Doris as an object. I mean, in a way, if there is any truth to, because we did see a few notes where potentially Rock is viewing Doris as a potential partner to, help him in his career, in a sense, act as a bid, for lack of better words, in a way that is kind of treating her as an object. Doris tends to be more masculine in this relationship, which, again, also not surprising. If she's running things in, a studio or movie project in, it would have been, the 50s, 60s, 40s even, maybe, that, is a very masculine, that's a man's position. And for Doris to be doing that, masculine. Doris's Mars square Rock's Uranus. It's exciting but unstable, and it's not long-term yet. We've seen a mixed bag when it comes to the longevity. It probably is just very unstable. Doris gets easily irritated with Rock, and they may encourage the other to be reckless. Rock sees Doris as a threat to his independence. The only way I can see this, if Rock does have this, again, skin in the game, and maybe Rock sees Doris as a bit of a threat in that way, she's going to be up and coming and replacing him in a sense. I'm sure that is a big fear in Hollywood. Rock distances himself from Doris, and Rock triggers Doris's temper. Doris's Mars trine Rock's Neptune. There is a lack of boundaries, and there's role playing, which you could see this as acting, or maybe they're acting out their lives as well, besides in movies, if you catch my drift. Rock strengthens Doris's ego, and Doris is more dominant. Not surprisingly so, we keep seeing that. Doris feels confident around Rock. Rock's Mars trine Doris's Pluto. It is intense, yeah, and they accomplish a lot together. I hope they do. They enjoy the power play between them, and there's lots of primitive energy. They both go for big changes here, and potential for both to get possessive, which we have been seeing. Rock helps bring out Doris's subconscious to the surface. I would like to think, because we did see sprinkles of Doris, having a bit of a softer side. I hope this is in a sense of maybe Doris does, bring down, bottle up her soft side and everything. Particularly if she's running things in a, 50s studio in Hollywood, you would be wanting to take on a bit more, masculine qualities, especially stereotypical masculine qualities. And having that softer side in that position at the time it was, I'm sure would not have rolled. So it potentially could just be in a sense of, bringing out this hidden qualities, or that Doris hid away, if that makes sense. And Rock being a bit more emotional helped to bring that out. Hopefully that made sense. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. I mean, I've shared my little theories throughout the reading, and going in completely blind, even for me, I'm very interested to go after and see what went on with these two. Particularly, what even their relationship was, because all I knew was, they were actors, and, Doris had a bit more of that wholesome reputation, and Rock was, a prolific, heartthrob actor who later on, came out and everything. So that was my only basis. So hopefully I did this reading some kind of justice. If you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings weekly. And besides that, give this video a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!